All right. Welcome everyone. I'm going to get started here at the top of the hour. I'm Paul Crocker with Reliability X. The title of the presentation is Educating Leadership on the Value of Asset Management. In the chat here, let me know if you can't see the screen or hear me talk. That way I know, because I don't have a view back where I can see what I'm presenting to you. I can just see my screens. So this is a little bit about me. I spent 30 years working with utilities, 28 of those directly as an employee of a power and water utility. And then the last 14 years of that was as a maintenance supervisor. And I got to do really a lot of things that I talk about day to day around asset management, maintenance, and reliability. And so my perspective for a lot of this is from water. And I couldn't really use that as this because looking at the list of attendees that signed up, um, there really weren't any utilities I saw. So I made this sort of generic presentation. It applies to all industries because we all have pumps and motors and gearboxes. And we take a product in and we put a product out. It's just what we do inside of that is different for everyone. So I'm also a Kansas Department of Health Environment Class 4 large systems drinking water operator. We got a ABC Class 3 maintenance technologist certification, CRL. I'm a CMRP. I'm a CAMA. I won a 2016 Uptime Award for innovative use of photography for maintenance. I spent 17 years total around asset management, and 17 years of those years also working with IBM Maximo, which I was awarded this year an IBM Champion 2024 for advocacy and use of the platform and getting other people to use products like Maximo. I'm also an adjunct professor for water maintenance and reliability stuff for the Fort Scott Community College. So because this is asset management and because not everybody is highly familiar with ISO 55000 or what asset management is and what it brings to the table, I wanted to sort of step back and give a higher level bird's eye view of it. And then over the rest of the years, I do monthly webinars. I'll sort of break up these topics in more in detail so we can get like sort of an hour's view on different topics, where this one's going to encompass the whole, hey, what's life like without asset management, and then what's life like with asset management. And so from my perspective, working in a plant and dealing with problems and people and issues that come up at the plant, I always felt like there was this sort of fog. I knew what was going on immediately around me, and I may be aware where an area I was just at where some maintenance or operations were taking place, but I um, but it wasn't like always like as soon as I walked away, I kind of forgot about the area. And so I used to a long time ago. I played real time strategy games. One of my favorite ones was just Warcraft, the RTS version, and then StarCraft. Some of those years ago, they were kind of fun to play. And they were always I always played against another person or the computer. And if you've ever played those games, the sort of screenshot on here will kind of remind you of what it's like to play those games. You start out as a character with really some basic resources around you. You can start to build things and you can direct people to go grab resources and do things for you. And you can sort of walk away. Well, that's cool, except you're not in the environment by yourself. You have an opponent there that's also doing the same things. And to sort of make the game more challenging, they build in this fog of war. And I think it's a good analogy because it shows you that you can see stuff right around you, but that's about it. And so in the game here, they have a radius that appears around the main player, and he can immediately see everything that's going on around him. And but he can, and then he can see areas that are foggy, like this area here, those are areas where he's been before. But as soon as he walks out of those and has been out of those for a very long time, fog comes in. And from that point on, until he walks back into those areas, he can't see resources like these little workers here in this area. He can't see opponents in this area. He has to actively be working in this area to see whatever's going on. And then there's the unknown areas. These are kind of going to represent the challenges of not having asset management. Your opponents can be out here, your customers can be out here, your resources, all sorts of unknowns out here. And in the game, that's what gets you. You think you're doing great, and then your opponent suddenly shows up and you're overwhelmed and lose the game really fast. So there's a little quote in here: the only thing worse than being blind is having sight but with no vision. That was from Helen Keller. So I'm going to try and tackle inefficient resource allocation, increased risk, missed opportunities, compliance challenges, customer workforce dissatisfaction, and financial uncertainty as part of this presentation. So it's also like, what's it like trying to lead an organization without asset management? So leading an organization without proper asset management is akin to navigating through a fog of war. The battlefield, that's kind of what the analogy is here. In absence of asset management practices, critical information about the organization's assets and operations are shrouded in a dense, impenetrable fog. Just as military commanders struggle to make informed decisions when they can't see the full battlefield, leaders in asset unsupported organizations grapple with the lack of visibility into their own operational landscape, and that's kind of easily depicted in that screenshot. Things sort of imagine too, leading an organization, but instead of a clear view of the horizon, you're surrounded by an eerie fog, and you can see the obstacles ahead. You can't really gauge the efficiency of your crew's actions. There's limited visibility, at least to a host of challenges. We'll talk about those as we get into the other slides here. So I'm setting this up too. I kind of built the deck, and then I started playing around with ChatGPT. So I had it, fed it sort of what I was wanting to do with the presentation, and then asked it to give me images that sort of convey the idea I'm wanting to communicate here. So in this image, it's a bunch of leaders, and they've all got ideas. There's sort of facts and opinions spread all over the table, and it's just kind of a mess. There's no direction, no unified direction. Everybody's kind of got their own ideas. Some people have got their arms crossed in opposition. Some people are trying to offer solutions, but there's really no clear leader. There's really no clear direction of the organization. It's just kind of a jumble. People just continue to operate in their silos, doing what they always do and how they've always done it. And if they're the only player in the market, maybe business works out for them. But if they're not, then that's how a lot of companies falter and end up being companies you heard of yesterday, or they got bought out by someone else. So everyone's spending is focused on their area of the organization. These are all siloed sort of things that happen and are common across industries, vertical industries, horizontal industries. Everyone's focused on doing good in their area of the organization. Everyone's playing by a different set of organizational rules, and those are the rules that abound in their silo, but sort of line up with the company's rules, but they're not aimed at a mission or vision or anything. They're just kind of doing what they can inside their little department to make their department run. And that's it. Everyone's kind of the master of their own silo. So when it happens, there's increased operational risk. When I was in a plant, operational risk to us was if we had a piece of equipment down, and the piece of equipment the operators were running had an issue. Did they know the other piece of equipment was down? Did they have a plan to work around it to get into the system? We had like a 30-minute window for most things that we could fix something if it caused an upset and be right back on without having an issue pushing drinking water out to the to utility. There's safety risks involved, and that can be from like everything from operators, just poor practices, getting injured, not wearing bump caps or safety glasses or hearing protection, risk to quality of the product that you're creating, um, financial risks. If there's something that um, people have been walking by every day, it's been making noises, and people just kind of are used to that environment, and they kind of get that um, mindset. Well, that occurs. That was doing it yesterday, and everybody's kind of heard the same thing, and people are just kind of blind to what's going on around them instead of really being aware and because when they do step up and say something, people just tell them, "Well, mind your own business. We got it handled." And everybody kind of is. It's just a poor culture. There's also environmental risk because when there's poor practices, things happen. Bad things happen in a lot of cases that make the news, and those aren't good for the company and definitely not good for the people around them. And there's compliance risks. You have usually external organizations that have some sort of um, something you have to be compliant with, and drinking water in the United States, it's the Environmental Protection Agency, and each state has primacy to make sure utilities follow the EPA's rules and to push out penalties if that doesn't happen. Same thing for environmental risks and those others. There's lots of risks, and if you're not organized, it's really foggy. People are just going out; they don't have any direction or aim. A lot of bad things can happen. And the sort of flip side of the risk is missed opportunities. Opportunities to do better all around. We just don't see them. I remember seeing one time we had a control system message. It would always come in for a dehumidifier that it failed to heat, and it was just a delay in settings. But it had come on so much um, before the culture improved that people really just completely quit paying attention to it, and eventually there was a real problem with it. It had stopped working, and because people had always seen that message, they failed to see it when it failed. And so you can just kind of think of what you're walking down the path you always walk, like in this image, and there's sort of opportunities all around you inside your business and organization to do better. But because of the fog and because everybody else is just staying on the path, they're sort of walking right by all the other opportunities where they could improve. And that's, really where asset management lies, is doing good business. It's really all about good business, doing the right things right, and along with standards and practices, and being the best organization you can be, but improving culture. So with all those other problems, there's also these challenges and risks. You've got risk to industry standards. Without asset management organizations, risk falling short of industry specific standards. Failure to adhere to these standards can result in reduced competitiveness and reputational change. It would say if you were a pipe manufacturer and you quit following the standards for dimensions of the pipe, and people started buying those pipes and like, man, these don't even fit anymore. What brand is that? You'll lose brand loyalty, and people go find something else, and you'll suddenly find yourself with a lot less customers than you used to have. There's an international standards body, ISO. Neglecting asset management practice can lead to non-compliance with ISO standards. Most of these are voluntary sort of consensus standards, but ISO standards play a critical role in demonstrating an organization's commitment to quality, effectiveness, environmental responsibility. And there's an ISO set of standards around there, ISO 55000, all around asset management. And they're working on those standards all the time. We actually have two people within Reliability X, George Williams and Ramesh Gulati, that are members of that technical committee, TC 251. So we actually have two people that sit on the US section of the ISO 55000 standards. So we've got a lot of expertise around asset management in our company. You've got laboratory standards. Organizations dealing with laboratory facilities will struggle to maintain adherence to laboratory standards. They may not have their equipment calibrated right. Their equipment isn't calibrated right. Operations doesn't have their equipment calibrated right because they should be relying on the laboratory, who hasn't really done a great job doing what they do. Asset management just helps to ensure that lab equipment and facilities meet the required standards for accuracy and safety. You can have discharge permit violations. For organizations with discharge permits, asset management is vital. Inadequate asset management can lead to permit violations, which can result in regulatory fines and damage to environmental reputation. Again, not good for business. Product standards are compromised. Asset management is critical to maintaining product quality and consistency. Without it, organizations will experience variations in product standards, potentially leading to customer dissatisfaction and market competitiveness challenges. And again, those are kind of just bad business. So we want to do better. And then this sort of goes without saying, if you have all those things that you're doing and you're having issues because you're not an asset management aware organization, you're highly siloed and the silos aren't working together to go in the same direction as the company leadership wants to go, or maybe even leadership doesn't really have a direction. They just started doing something 100 years ago and they've just continued doing it and haven't really tried to improve. So when things start to fall down, customer expectations aren't met. If you're buying a product and suddenly the buttons on it don't work anymore when you buy the new one, it doesn't last like previous versions of the product lasted, you probably go somewhere else and buy somebody else's product. The workforce is reduced. So you're not getting the income into the company that you were once getting because your products weren't meeting expectations. So you have to cut down their workforce. And so you reduce the size of that. Now you're forcing people to do more with less. And then there's a whole cultural thing. People try to improve their little area, but they don't have support from management. And when they have concerns and they bring them to management, management just tells them, hey, this is the way we've always done it. Just go back to doing it the way you've been doing it. And, maybe that works for a time, but there's no guarantee for any of us that we'll be in business tomorrow. So there's a high importance to making sure that you have a highly reliable organization that's interested in doing good business and having good asset management practices. There's also financial uncertainty. You'll have unpredictable maintenance costs. Um, High emergency maintenance expenses out of O&M, asset downtime, and loss of revenue. Fewer and fewer customers. So, um, we either manage our assets and be proactive, or our assets are going to manage us. Totally reactive. Reactivity has consequences. It's higher costs, risk to operations, risk to safety. And our assets, frankly, don't care about our wishes. They don't care about board's decisions. They don't care about your specific area's budget. If you're not going to take care of an asset, it's going to take care of you and it's going to fail unknowingly to you, and you're not going to have planned to do anything about it. They don't care how big your asset, how big your or small your organization is, and they don't care if you want to be at your kid's soccer practice the evening or whatever else it is you wanted to be doing off hours, because they're going to fail at the most inconvenient time. And they really don't care about your desires. So to get around that, you really have to care about your equipment. You have to have asset management in place. You have to have standards and organizational connectedness so those silos are unified and so management can see across all those silos. So it's kind of like everything's really foggy. There's just poor business decisions happening without asset management. With asset management, kind of using the same fog of war theme in the first slide, you have increased visibility of assets across all silos. In this instance here, the center kingdom can kind of see all of its territory. It can see its borders. It can see outside of its borders. It can see its resources. And it can see all that in real time without really any fog covering up any piece of it. So your decisions are all based on data. Your opinions are going out the window if you don't have data to back up a claim about how the business is running, it's usually dismissed. Risks are mitigated, like risks are thought about highly in the organization, and efforts are made to mitigate those based on their significance and consequence when something happens. Planning is very strategic across the organization. You have planning around work management, planning around jobs, everything standardized, costs are controlled. That's for inventory and resources. You don't have things sitting on shelves that you don't use unless they're strategic. And if you do have things sitting on shelves, it's because there was math involved in having those there in the quantity that you have there. You have compliance with regulations, and that's assured because people are doing the right reporting and there's visibility up to the top. And then operations and maintenance, the people are touching the assets and operating them every day can do a good job. And there's usually a lot higher cultural values in an organization with asset management than in one without. So we have visibility across all silos. So the leadership can see finance, they can see operations, they can see maintenance, engineering, supply chain, and stores. And they can do that because they have systems that are all tied together. Each silo doesn't have its own source of truth. They all have a single source of truth. So there's one EAM system that's deployed across all the sites. And everything within that enterprise asset management system is unified. You have failure modes and failure codes and classification systems that are used across the organization. So when one person talks about a butterfly valve or a motor, they're all saying the exact same piece of information. The ERP systems or the personnel and finance systems are all aligned. It's one system across the entire organization. And opinions inside the organizations are quickly discredited, and there's a lot of confidence in decision making because you have good data. The quote in there, "In God we trust, all others must bring data," and that was by W. Edward Deming. In a asset management aware organization, you'll have risk mitigation that's always taking place. You have improved safety measures by maintaining assets in optimal condition and addressing potential safety hazards early. Asset management contributes to a safer working environment for employees and reduces the risk of accidents or injuries, which can be very, very expensive. Work management efficiency. Asset management streamlines work processes, allowing organizations to plan and schedule maintenance tasks effectively. This approach minimizes unplanned downtime, reduces operational costs, and enhances overall work management effectiveness. Not only that, operations is well aware of what maintenance is doing, and maintenance is well aware of what operations is doing, and they're aware of those tasks well ahead of time. And when there's a major piece of equipment that needs to come down to be repaired, everyone's on the same plan. Everyone knows about it ahead of time. The work can be done safely. Parts can be ordered in and on site and on hand and available at the time of the work. And it's a lot safer, and it leads to a lot better satisfaction from the workers. You have regulatory compliance. It ensures consistent compliance with industry regulations and standards, reducing the risk of non-compliance fines, legal complications, reputational damage. Additionally, organizations can demonstrate their commitment to environmental and social responsibility, further mitigating risks associated with non-compliance. And then there's financial risk mitigation. Effective asset management enables organizations to extend the lifespan of critical assets, reducing their financial risk associated with frequent replacements or major repairs. By optimizing resource allocation and budget planning, organizations can better manage financial uncertainties and allocate funds appropriately. Dwight Eisenhower, a U.S. General in World War II, said, "In preparing for battle, I always have found that plans are useless, but planning is indispensable." And risk mitigation always involves planning and continuous planning. So strategic planning, this is usually organization-wide. Um, Asset management supports long-term strategic planning. Leaders can align asset management practices with the organization's strategic goals. It ensures assets contribute to the overall mission. In asset management, an asset is really deemed anything that's of value to the organization. I won't go into all that because rabbit hole it takes a little bit to go through, but just suffice to say that can be people, processes, equipment, goods, anything that's of value to the organization is considered an asset. But inside your organization, you can always take that and put bumpers around it. You can give financial limits to those and other things. And with strategic planning, organizations can also plan for asset upgrades, replacements, and improvements based on anticipated future needs. And they're also thinking about things that happen after the asset's retired, because you have an asset that's potentially hazardous. You have cradle to grave responsibility for it, and that involves thinking about things after you've sort of quit using and disposed of the asset. Okay. Cost control. Effective asset management helps control costs throughout the asset's life cycle. Design, build, operate, maintain, modify, dispose. Leaders can optimize maintenance schedules, minimize emergency, corrective maintenance repairs, and extend asset life cycles. The cost-effective approach ensures the financial resources are allocated efficiently and that unexpected expenses are reduced. Optimized maintenance. Asset management allows for organizations to implement preventive and predictive maintenance strategies, reducing the costly emergency repairs by proactively addressing issues. Companies can control maintenance costs and extend the operations life of assets. Resource allocation efficiency. This one, leaders can allocate financial resources more efficiently with asset management in place by gaining insights in assets' health and performance. They can prioritize investments, ensure funds are directed toward critical assets and areas to deliver the highest return. And there's a reduced unexpected expenses. Effective asset management reduces the occurrence of unexpected downtimes and asset failures. So you have known costs for materials. When you have the right amount of materials on hand, and for the immediate future and for emergencies, you have the right spare parts on hand for day-to-day stuff. You have critical spares, and you don't have money sitting on a shelf that's not being used, and you have a very accurate view of your inventory. And there really is a total elimination of hidden stores. That's really critical. If people have the ability to rat hole tools and supplies that they think they need without having to go to the stores to get those supplies, that can be a big impact on a company's finances. Not only that, if there's problems with the quality of something that was on the shelf, the stores can deal with that. But if they don't know about your hidden stores, that's a problem, because well, you don't even know the problem, and you could use spare parts that are defective on an asset and cause failures that shouldn't have been there. Tools are standardized. Training for operating the tools happens as the tools are purchased, and continues to happen at a regular interval. So people that are using the tools are using them correctly, and everyone's using the same way. Planned replacements happen. Planned renewals happen. There's a lot of thought into how those things work, and a lot of people are brought to the table to make sure those things happen in some order. Mark Twain said the lack of money is the root of all evil. So if you're not managing your costs, you're not going to have money, and things are going to go bad quickly. Compliance assurance. Consistent regulatory adherence. Asset management ensures that organizations consistently meet environmental, safety, industrial regulations. By tracking asset performance, maintenance, and data related to compliance requirements, companies can minimize the risk to regulatory violations and associated penalties. We would have, when I worked in the water plant, the state would send a regulator around twice a year through the entire system. That was through our plant and through our distribution system. And they had the ability to just point out whatever they wanted in the plant and ask for maintenance records about that particular piece of equipment. They may not have even known what it was. But if we didn't have those records available, then we could be in trouble with being in compliance for like a risk management plan or whatever. And then there's financial consequences to that. Not to mention the actual consequences to the plant should something fail. There's a documentation and audit trail. Asset management systems maintain comprehensive records for asset-related activities, inspections, and maintenance. The documentation serves as a valuable audit trail, providing evidence of compliance with regulations. It enhances transparency and helps organizations demonstrate their commitment to regulatory adherence. In a lot of EAM and CMMS systems, prevent users from deleting records once they've been created. So that helps in that compliance world. There's timely reporting and notifications. Asset management systems can generate automated reports and notifications related to compliance deadlines, inspections, and required actions. This feature ensures organizations stay proactive in addressing compliance requirements and reducing the likelihood of oversight or delays that could lead to non-compliance issues. Operational efficiency. There's a minimized downtime. Asset management enables organizations to implement preventive maintenance schedules, predictive maintenance strategies. This proactive approach reduces unexpected asset failures, minimizes downtime, and optimizes productivity and delivery of service. And it also ensures that maintenance isn't in hero mode. If you're a highly reliable organization and if you're doing asset management, maintenance can be sort of boring. So, but that's a good thing. You don't want people going off and being the hero. That's when people get hurt and people can even die. So it's really important to have a highly reliable organization. You have streamlined workflows. Asset management systems facilitate streamlined workflows by automating asset tracking, maintenance, scheduling, resource allocation. This automation reduces manual processes, eliminates paperwork, and ensures that tasks are assigned efficiently and enhancing of overall operational efficiency. Resource optimization. Through data-driven decisions and insights, asset management helps organizations make informed decisions about resource allocation. This includes manpower, spare parts, maintenance resources. By optimizing resource usage, organizations can achieve high cost savings and overall operational efficiency. Customer satisfaction, that's a big one. Without customer satisfaction, I don't think any of us would be in business. Satisfied customers are essential for any organization's success. In my case, it was utilities and delivering clean drinking water and electricity to our customers. Asset management helps deliver reliable and consistent services, leading to increased customer satisfaction. Leaders can demonstrate their commitment to providing quality services, which in turn strengthen customer loyalty. So, satisfied customers are return to buy products or services because they're brand loyal. Quality is consistent. I like to buy Samsung products, TVs and phones. I've never had any problem with their products, and probably the 15 years I've been using Samsung as a brand name. So that has given me brand loyalty and faithfulness to their products, whether it's a TV or a cell phone. I just like the the Samsung product line. And so that's what satisfied customers do for you. They repeat business. When there's defects in the process, they're eliminated. When there's defects that have gotten outside of the customers, they're addressed quickly and resolved. And there's improved service reliability. Satisfied customer is the best source of advertisement. I mean, that's the truth about any industry. Workforce productivity. A well-maintained asset base means a happier, more productive workforce. Asset management minimizes the risk of accidents and injuries, creating a safer work environment. Streamlined work process. Asset management ensures optimized maintenance schedules, reduces downtime, and ensures that equipment is available when needed. The streamlined work processes enhances productivity by minimizing disruptions and maximizing resource utilization. Effective resource allocation. Asset management provides insights into resource allocation, helping organizations allocate manpower and materials efficiently. All that really goes to say, hey, we've got a good culture. People are happy to show up at work. People generally work towards the aim of the organization. Silos are now aimed at corporate goals. So if that's water utility, maybe that's to deliver good, clean drinking water that meets all the meets or exceeds regulatory requirements at a certain pressure and a certain volume, 24 hours a day. That could be their standard, and so everyone sort of operates the plant and the distribution system to meet that standard. There's standard work processes. You have job plans that are unified for different equipment types. You have preventive maintenance records that kick off work orders that are standardized using the job plans that happen with the EAM systems. Resource allocation, you're not sending 2 or 3 people to go do a job. You're not sending people out to do a job without the right parts and the right tools and the right manuals, so that you eliminate the back and forth, the travel time, and you have stable work for your employees. Strategic resource allocation. You have optimized budgets. O&M budgets aren't overwhelmed, and maintenance budgets aren't overwhelmed. Capital budgets are done, and the money is not siphoned off to help the O&M side of the business with failures. You have maximized asset utilization and really good decision making. That's based on data and not on opinions. You have a competitive advantage. You can be a market leader. You can be adaptive to market changes. There's efficiency of costs and innovation and growth. So you can be a really successful company with asset management. There really aren't any cons that I've seen to asset management. It's not a big, complicated process. I mean, you can have an asset management plan that's not very big, an asset management policy that can be a page or two that describes that, and it should be a living document that you utilize and revisit yearly or on some period to revise and update it to keep your processes aligned with things that are happening. Really, the goal is the long-term sustainability, resource conservation. You're not using more resources than you need to be. You're not changing oil and motors based on the manufacturer's recommendations. You're changing oil and equipment based on its condition and the asset condition, and hopefully through using laboratories to analyze oil samples. You've got resilience to change that's even inside your industry, inside your organization, resilience to change from outside your organization. And hopefully long-term sustainability also means a legacy, that you've been around for a long time and you'll continue to be around for a long time. Conclusion, alignment, visibility. All companies face resource constraints, making efficient asset management essential. Asset management optimizes resource allocation, reduces operational costs, and extends infrastructure life. It enables compliance with regulation, reducing legal risks, and ensuring public health and safety. Asset management boosts customer satisfaction, supporting utility or organizational sustainability, and empowers informed decisions, efficient resource use, and long-term service availability. So that's the end of the presentation. I wanted to keep it sort of short because it was a high level, and over the next 11 months, we'll break into topics a little more in depth and get into ISO 55000 a little bit more. And hopefully by the end of the year, we'll have done a good series um, from me on my monthly webinars. You can always send me questions at paul.crocker@reliabilityx.com. You can also send those to ask@reliabilityx.com. Some resources, our websites, www.reliabilityx.com. We have a lot of resources and videos, and this video will be eventually on there within the next day or so. There's the ISO 55000 standards themselves. If you're in the United States, you can go to ANSI.org and look up ISO 55000. You can buy the standards. They're not very thick documents. They don't give you a how to do asset management because there's no one way that fits every organization. But it does give you the things that asset management that you should be doing in your organization if you're practicing asset management. And finally, there's the ISO TC 251 committee page. That's the US component of ISO 55000, or I guess the global. And then we've got two people that sit on that committee, again, George Williams and Ramesh Gulati. So let's see, had a couple questions here. One was we'd be talking about OEE or showing improvement over time. Not in these series. We will be covering it in our other webinars. George Williams, Joe Anderson, Ramesh Gulati, and myself are doing roughly one a week for the remainder of the year. So it's 4 webinars a month over the 12 months of the year. So that will be covered in one of those webinars. One of the other questions is, what is your approach recommendation for developing a strategic asset management plan, SAMP, for a large utility? Also, the development of asset management plans, AMPs. For those if you're a utility, there's a few other utilities that have done this. If you shoot me an email, I can send you some resources. I actually have a couple of policies that 3 organizations have written I can share with you. And I can give you some other feedback for those because there are some great resources out there for utilities of all sizes. So, Christopher, I saw that question. If you want to, please reach out to me. I can get you more information. The last question I see in here in the chat is, how often does the SAMP need to be revised? 1 year, 5 years. What's best practice in your experience? Well, if you have a very stable industry, say drinking water, there isn't a lot of things that change. It's very consistent. It hasn't really changed much in the last 100 years, especially with the EPA regulations are applied to all utilities, drinking water and wastewater. So there's not a ton of change for our industry. If you revisit those maybe once every 5 years, that's good. If you're in an industry where there's a lot of change, a lot of competitiveness changes, manufacturing or pharma or whatever, maybe you revisit those once a year. And they don't have to be big, long sessions, but you should have a policy. You should have a strategic asset planning management plan, and you should look at those documents together as an organization and make changes as needed. So, which industries do you think are leading the curve in asset management? It seems in Canada, specifically in mining, there is very little interest. What do you think are the leading reasons for that attitude? I don't really know. I sometimes even wonder that about the organizations I've been involved with. I think it is some countries are really good at it. Australia, New Zealand, Japan have sort of enabled those things and made them a way of life because of lack of resources. They really had to manage their assets well because there wasn't a lot of resources around them to help them when things went bad. Here in the United States, for some reason, we're not the leaders in some of these things that we should be. So I can't really answer that question. I think, to me, it's good business, and why wouldn't any business want to have good asset management practices? I mean, everybody has financial systems, everybody has human resources systems, and maintenance management systems. Asset management really is more of an alignment of those, and an alignment of those to where there's visibility across all the silos, and alignment so where leadership can see all the data and everything that's happening in those and make well-informed data-based decisions. I'm happy to discuss that more with you, Joe. I've got lots of resources I could reach out to with that question and get you some more insights. I just don't have any personally that I can help with. That was the last of my questions. So again, I want to thank everyone for showing up today. There's one last thing I'd like to ask you to do. We have a webinar evaluation. Just take your cell phone out, take a snapshot of that QR code, and it will ask you for webinar code, and just enter 2024_6. And just fill out the questions honestly. If I did a terrible job of presenting, let me know. If the subject wasn't what you expected it to be, let me know. If we did things good here, let us know. We use that feedback to improve future webinars. So again, I thank you for taking your time today and attending, and hopefully we'll see you in the next webinar next month.